Hello, welcome to the Facebook channel. I invite you to enjoy the nature scenery with me and listen to a new story. Let's go together.
I never expected the ultimate betrayal to unfold on my phone screen while sitting inside my quiet office. My name is Roxanne, a 38-year-old single mother who spent several exhausting years building a peaceful life for us. At exactly 9:30 in the morning, I received an unexpected emergency phone call from my young daughter. She was staying home from school with a mild fever, but her trembling voice suggested a completely different kind of terrifying nightmare. "Mom, something is terribly wrong because Grandma and Grandpa are tearing the house apart looking for something." She was hiding deep inside her dark bedroom closet while my parents and my older brother aggressively dismantled our entire living room. I immediately opened the hidden security camera application on my smartphone to watch the live video feed of my own home. My blood ran cold when I witnessed the exact people who raised me committing an unbelievable act of domestic theft. They were frantically ripping my late grandmother's precious antique oil painting right off the living room wall without any hesitation. They quickly rolled up the heavy canvas and fled the property before I could even process the sheer audacity of their situation. Those greedy individuals completely failed to realize that the beautiful painting was just a clever decoy hiding the real treasure. Before I explain what happened next, leave a comment with the word "protect" if you believe real love means holding toxic family members accountable for their destructive actions. Please subscribe to the channel so you can hear exactly how this unbelievable betrayal finally reached its inevitable conclusion. My grandmother Clara left me this Cape Cod house 5 years ago, along with a warning I did not fully understand until now. I have always prided myself on being a completely financially independent single mother who works tirelessly to ensure a peaceful life for my 13-year-old daughter Daisy. My parents, Henry and Ruth, alongside my older brother Oliver, harbored immense resentment toward me ever since the legal execution of the estate documents. Clara had made the explicit decision to bypass her own children entirely and transfer her valuable property, plus a substantial trust fund, directly into my name. She possessed an incredibly sharp intellect that easily pierced through their decades of reckless spending habits and their continuous cycles of insurmountable debt created by failed business ventures. Their immediate response to losing their anticipated fortune was explosive anger, followed by completely severing all family ties with me for nearly 4 years. That bitter period of estrangement abruptly concluded several months ago when they unexpectedly resurfaced exhibiting a highly coordinated display of fake affection. Mom and Dad began orchestrating spontaneous weekend visits to our home, while constantly expressing exaggerated worry about my personal stress levels and daily responsibilities. They would sit comfortably in my living space while their eyes systematically evaluated every single antique item remaining from the original estate inventory. Their seemingly casual conversations inevitably drifted toward probing questions regarding whether Clara had secretly passed down anything small enough to be easily transported or quickly liquidated for cash. Oliver adopted an even more invasive approach by paying particular attention to the heavy oil painting dominating the main viewing area above the fireplace. I personally caught him lingering behind the rest of the group to discreetly capture multiple detailed photographs of the canvas using his smartphone. His disturbing behavior extended far beyond simply cataloging my inherited possessions to prepare for a future unauthorized removal from the premises. He developed a deeply unsettling pattern of isolating Daisy whenever I stepped away into the kitchen to prepare their specifically requested refreshments. He would interrogate my teenager about my daily professional schedule while subtly planting negative suggestions regarding my overall capability as a competent parent. Oliver repeatedly asked her if I was forgetting important appointments or exhibiting visible signs of severe mental fatigue from managing my demanding career alone. He deliberately framed these intrusive inquiries under the deceptive guise of a loving relative merely looking out for his supposedly struggling sister. Witnessing these calculated maneuvers finally brought absolute clarity to the final private conversation I shared with Clara shortly before she passed away in her bedroom. She had gripped my hand tightly and explicitly commanded me not to trust the obvious display on the wall, but to fiercely protect the secret hidden elsewhere. Connecting her cryptic dying words with the ongoing psychological manipulation directed at my vulnerable child revealed the terrifying depth of their coordinated malevolence. They were actively constructing a deceptive narrative regarding my mental stability, while simultaneously targeting specific physical assets for an impending theft. I realized with absolute certainty that this sudden family reconciliation was actually the foundational stage of a highly sophisticated plot designed to forcefully usurp my entire estate. That same Tuesday evening, the empty space on the living room wall confirmed their betrayal. I immediately sat down with Daisy to establish strict behavioral rules regarding our newly discovered security camera footage showing the theft. Instructing a young teenager to maintain absolute silence about the hidden recording devices required careful explanation so she would not feel overwhelmed by the mandatory deception. We thoroughly agreed she must continue acting completely normal whenever interacting with Mom, Dad, or Oliver, despite knowing the terrifying truth about their criminal actions. Taking the next strategic step meant actively playing into the false victim narrative they had violently initiated inside my house that very morning. I initiated a phone call directly to Mom and Dad to report a fabricated burglary, while secretly running a sophisticated voice recording application on my computer. Their performance over the phone was an absolute masterclass in theatrical deception, mixed perfectly with sickeningly sweet parental concern. Mom gasped loudly into the receiver before exclaiming in a panicked tone, "Oh, sweetheart, that's terrible. Are you and Daisy safe? We'll come over tomorrow to help you look." Hearing those deceptively comforting words while possessing the undeniable digital proof of their trespassing solidified my permanent emotional detachment from the people who raised me. Securing this high-quality audio evidence of their blatant perjury provided another crucial layer of legal protection for the impending courtroom battle. Leaving the stressful phone conversation behind me allowed me to retreat into the isolated safety of my private home office to begin the real work. I bypassed the empty wall entirely to retrieve a heavy wooden box containing an antique maritime compass from the bottom drawer of my desk. Staring at the intricate brass instrument finally made me understand the brilliant psychological trap Clara had carefully constructed years ago before her passing. I whispered quietly to myself in the empty room. That painting was never the inheritance, it was a filter to expose who they really were. The heavy canvas was merely a highly visible temptation designed specifically to test the absolute limits of their insatiable financial greed. My fingers traced the polished edge of the wooden container, while I clearly recalled her cryptic final warning from her deathbed. Her frail voice echoed in my memory, repeating the explicit phrase, "Don't trust what's on the wall, protect what's hidden." Pressing a concealed mechanical latch along the wooden base instantly revealed a cleverly disguised false bottom beneath the heavy navigation instrument. Reaching inside the dark hidden compartment yielded a thick stack of vintage bank records bundled tightly together with a sealed handwritten envelope. Unfolding the delicate paper revealed Clara's unmistakable handwriting documenting a devastating chronological history of unforgivable familial financial crimes dating back decades. The extensive letter systematically exposed how Henry, Ruth, and Oliver had previously forged multiple signatures to embezzle massive sums from the collective family savings accounts. Clara explicitly explained her difficult decision to retain this damaging physical evidence privately, rather than involving local law enforcement just to preserve their public reputation. She knew exposing their massive fraud would destroy the family name entirely, so she chose to quietly secure the indisputable proof for my future protection. However, her brilliant foresight accurately predicted they would eventually deplete those stolen funds through terrible investments and systematically target my legally protected assets next. The final paragraph contained a chilling prophecy detailing their inevitable strategy to manufacture a fake medical crisis to declare me legally incompetent to manage my estate. Holding those fragile handwritten pages tightly in my trembling hands provided me with the ultimate legal weapon needed to permanently dismantle their impending conservatorship scheme before it even officially started. By Thursday morning, my shock had completely hardened into tactical precision, requiring immediate external reinforcements to secure our physical safety. I initiated contact with my private investigator, Julian Vance, signing a comprehensive legal contract to discreetly investigate their hidden financial records. Simultaneously, I reached out to my best friend Sarah, desperately needing her unwavering emotional support during this devastating family crisis. Sarah immediately agreed to handle transporting Daisy to her middle school every single day to ensure she remained absolutely safe from manipulation. This crucial logistical assistance guaranteed my vulnerable teenager would never be intercepted or interrogated by mom or dad while I was working. Julian operated with terrifying efficiency by delivering his preliminary financial background report to my secure email inbox within 48 hours. His meticulous digital investigation quickly confirmed the exact desperate situation Clara had warned me about inside her secret handwritten letter. Henry, Ruth, and Oliver were currently drowning underneath a colossal collective debt, totaling several hundreds of thousands of dollars. Their devastating financial ruin stemmed directly from participating in highly speculative commercial real estate investments that had recently declared total bankruptcy. Aggressive institutional creditors were actively threatening to seize their remaining personal assets unless they miraculously produced an enormous influx of cash. Julian provided detailed banking statements highlighting multiple overdrawn accounts belonging to Oliver, alongside several missed mortgage payments from mom and dad. Reviewing this disastrous economic portfolio finally provided the missing logical context surrounding their aggressive morning intrusion into my living room. Julian calmly explained over a secure phone line, the theft wasn't impulsive, it was phase one of a much larger plan. They desperately needed to sell the stolen antique painting through illegal black market art dealers to generate immediate untraceable funds. Liquidating my stolen property would temporarily satisfy their most aggressive debt collectors, while buying them enough time to execute their ultimate strategy. This horrifying realization proved their fake family reconciliation was entirely motivated by an urgent necessity to escape their own self-inflicted financial collapse. They were essentially using my private residence as a free personal banking vault to fund their luxurious lifestyle and cover their massive mistakes. However, the stolen painting was merely a minor preliminary theft compared to the terrifying backup plan Julian uncovered later that afternoon. His surveillance team acquired concrete photographic evidence, proving my relatives had recently conducted 3 secret meetings with a highly specialized family attorney. This particular lawyer exclusively handled complex conservatorship cases designed to permanently strip vulnerable individuals of their legal asset management rights. Julian delivered this chilling update with extreme urgency, stating, "They are trying to build a medical case against you, Roxanne, so you need to lock down your health records immediately." Their ultimate goal was legally declaring me mentally unfit so they could forcefully seize absolute control over the entire Cape Cod estate and the trust fund. Recognizing the catastrophic severity of this legal threat prompted me to take unprecedented defensive measures to protect my personal autonomy. I immediately contacted the administrative directors at my primary healthcare network to implement the highest level of security restrictions available. I explicitly revoked all previously authorized emergency contact permissions while demanding a strict password protection protocol for releasing any medical documentation. Securing those private hospital files effectively neutralized their primary method for fabricating the deceptive psychiatric evidence required for their fraudulent conservatorship petition. Furthermore, I instructed the clinic staff to permanently flag my account to alert me if anyone attempted to illegally access my diagnostic history. With my digital defensive perimeter firmly established, I began preparing for the inevitable psychological warfare they were planning to bring directly to my dining table. 2 weeks later, the exact psychological scenario my grandmother explicitly predicted played out inside my formal dining room. Henry Ruth, along with Oliver, arrived completely unannounced, carrying takeout containers while escorting an unfamiliar gentleman wearing a tailored business suit. Mom confidently introduced this strange individual as a specialized family psychology consultant who supposedly wanted to observe our domestic environment. They shamelessly bypassed standard social boundaries by seating this undocumented medical professional directly across from me at my own dining table. Their underlying intention was painfully obvious because they needed an official witness to document my presumed mental instability during dinner. Mom leaned forward with a deeply practiced expression of maternal concern etched across her aging face before delivering her opening line. She reached out to touch my hand while saying, "You look so exhausted lately, honey. Are you sure you're managing everything okay with Daisy?" I maintained a perfectly pleasant smile while quietly processing the unbelievable absurdity of her manufactured affection inside my own home. I silently thought to myself, I watched them pretend to care, knowing I had already seen exactly what they did on the security camera. Experiencing this supreme dramatic irony provided a profound sense of empowerment because their entire deceptive performance was fundamentally pointless. Following her initial aggressive inquiry, the trio launched a highly coordinated verbal assault specifically designed to trigger an explosive emotional reaction. They systematically bombarded me with invasive questions regarding my intense professional workload while criticizing my capacity as a single parent. Oliver aggressively questioned whether I felt overwhelmed by financial responsibilities, while subtly implying my cognitive functions were rapidly deteriorating. They desperately wanted me to start screaming or crying hysterically, so their hired consultant could formally diagnose me as unstable. Their relentless psychological pressure tactics were specifically calculated to provoke a dramatic meltdown that would validate their impending legal conservatorship petition. Instead of taking their malicious bait, I flawlessly executed the gray rock psychological technique throughout the entire duration of the agonizing meal. I provided remarkably concise verbal responses delivered with a completely flat vocal tone, completely devoid of any readable human emotion whatsoever. My brief answers offered zero defensive explanations, while simultaneously depriving them of the chaotic emotional reaction they so desperately needed. Meanwhile, a highly sophisticated digital recording device remained safely concealed inside my jacket pocket, capturing every single manipulative word they spoke. Their hired psychology expert grew increasingly visibly frustrated as my impenetrable calmness completely destroyed their carefully constructed narrative of insanity. Realizing their primary target remained emotionally untouchable, Oliver suddenly shifted his predatory focus toward a much more vulnerable victim. He intentionally followed Daisy into the isolated kitchen area under the false pretense of helping her fetch some extra napkins. I immediately heard his intimidating voice rising aggressively as he forcefully attempted to coerce Daisy into a false confession. He loudly demanded she falsely admit that her mother was constantly irritable, increasingly paranoid, and frequently forgetting important household tasks lately. He was actively terrorizing a young teenager to manufacture fraudulent medical testimony, supporting their despicable legal campaign against my autonomy. Hearing his threatening tone directly aimed at Daisy instantly shattered the polite dinner atmosphere and demanded immediate, decisive intervention. I swiftly walked into the kitchen to physically position myself between my terrified daughter and her incredibly abusive uncle. I stared directly at the hostile intruders before delivering my final verdict with absolute, unwavering authority echoing through the room. I pointed straight toward the front door while firmly declaring, "This dinner is over. Both of you and your guest need to leave my house right now." I successfully established an impenetrable physical boundary to protect Daisy's psychological safety, while forcefully guiding the baffled conspirators out into the cold night. The following Monday morning delivered their formal declaration of war through a certified legal courier, arriving unexpectedly at my front porch. The delivery driver handed over a thick manila envelope containing official state documents designed specifically to destroy my independent life. Reviewing the heavy documents made me vocalize the terrifying reality by stating, when they failed to provoke me, they escalated to the legal system. The official court summons demanded an immediate emergency conservatorship hearing, specifically designed to legally strip away my personal autonomy entirely. Their fabricated legal petition blatantly argued that I was suffering from a severe nervous breakdown, rendering me completely incapable of raising Daisy properly. The ridiculous paperwork further claimed my supposed deteriorating condition created an unsafe living environment requiring their immediate parental intervention to protect my daughter. They literally listed my demanding career schedule as proof of parental neglect, while entirely ignoring their own history of severe financial instability. Reading those entirely fraudulent allegations confirmed the stolen painting was merely intended to generate quick pocket money for their immediate upcoming expenses. Julian confirmed my terrifying suspicions over the secure phone line by gravely stating, "They aren't just after the cash from the painting anymore. They want total control of the estate." Recognizing the severe magnitude of this judicial threat prompted me to gather every single piece of accumulated evidence immediately without any delay. I drove directly to the downtown office of my attorney, Mr. Sterling, to prepare a devastating legal counterattack against my treacherous relatives. Sitting across his massive mahogany desk allowed me to present the hidden compass letters alongside the digital recordings of their manipulative phone calls. Mr. Sterling meticulously reviewed Clara's handwritten confession, outlining their decades of embezzlement before systematically verifying the authenticity of my digital security camera footage. During our intensive strategy meeting, Julian electronically transmitted the absolute final piece of damning evidence required to permanently destroy their fraudulent case. His incredible surveillance efforts successfully intercepted a highly incriminating audio recording featuring Oliver negotiating aggressively with a shady commercial real estate broker. The leaked recording featured Oliver explicitly discussing his sinister timeline for liquidating this valuable Cape Cod house immediately upon successfully securing the conservatorship. Hearing my own brother casually bargaining away my inherited home finally erased any remaining hesitation regarding my chosen path of absolute retaliation. Protecting my daughter's future required executing an impenetrable financial defense strategy before the scheduled mediation date officially arrived later that same week. Working closely alongside Mr. Sterling allowed me to legally transfer the entire remaining trust fund into an irrevocably locked independent savings account. This highly specific financial instrument legally mandated that Daisy would become the sole exclusive beneficiary only upon reaching her 25th birthday. This decisive structural maneuver successfully neutralized their primary financial incentive by completely removing those liquid assets from my personal vulnerable investment portfolio. Knowing we possessed overwhelming undeniable proof of their extortion plot gave us the immense confidence necessary to face them directly during mediation. Mr. Sterling officially filed a formal legal response, actively accepting their invitation to participate in a mandatory pretrial session scheduled for Friday. He expertly drafted our counter documents to reveal absolutely nothing about the massive mountain of indisputable evidence we had quietly accumulated together. We strategically allowed them to continue believing their deceptive psychological warfare had successfully intimidated me into a position of absolute terrified submission. Meanwhile, I sat quietly inside the law firm conference room, carefully organizing the flash drives and printed documents into distinct red file envelopes. Placing those explosive hidden secrets inside the brightly colored folders felt like preparing a devastating trap for the impending Friday morning confrontation. I meticulously sealed each individual packet with absolute precision, knowing these carefully arranged files would inevitably trigger the complete collapse of their scheme. At precisely 10 o'clock on Friday morning, the heavy wooden doors of the downtown conference room officially closed to seal them inside, alongside their own ridiculous arrogance. Mom and Dad sat directly opposite me, displaying grotesquely fake, worried expressions, while Oliver continuously checked his wristwatch, like counting down the seconds until claiming his massive inheritance. The opposing attorney initiated the mediation session by delivering a lengthy speech filled with complex legal jargon designed specifically to prove I lacked the mental capacity to manage the Cape Cod estate. Mom leaned forward using a sickeningly sweet tone resembling someone coaxing a lost child while saying, "We only want what's best for your health. Roxanne, you really need a break from these heavy responsibilities." I remained absolutely silent without interrupting their performance, or displaying any visible anger while slowly pushing the crimson folders toward the center of the large mahogany table. Instead of picking up the fountain pen to sign their cruel conservatorship document, I calmly connected my personal laptop to the room projector to display my ironclad evidence. The remarkably crisp security footage from my hidden cameras immediately appeared on the massive screen to broadcast their ultimate betrayal for everyone present in the room to witness. The undeniable video clearly showed Mom-Dad alongside Oliver sneaking into my private residence that fateful morning to shamelessly steal Clara's priceless antique oil painting from my wall. Witnessing themselves getting caught, red-handed committing domestic burglary on a massive projector screen, instantly turned my parents completely pale with undeniable terror. Oliver frantically began stammering utterly pathetic excuses regarding how they were supposedly trying to protect the valuable artwork from actual neighborhood thieves. Refusing to allow them any opportunity to regain their shattered composure, I extracted Clara's final handwritten letter from the red envelope to read her devastating words aloud. My grandmother had documented incredibly accurate details exposing exactly how Dad partnered with Oliver to embezzle hundreds of thousands of dollars from the collective family savings over several decades. I stared directly into the fearful eyes of the people who raised me while firmly stating, "You don't want what's best for me, you just desperately want to clear your massive debt by selling my house." Delivering the fatal blow to their filthy financial scheme required aggressively slamming Oliver's catastrophic bank statements onto the table to expose his impending total bankruptcy. The opposing lawyer immediately started sweating profusely, while realizing his treacherous clients had deliberately hidden these severe illegal actions since the very beginning of the fraudulent lawsuit. Executing my final maneuver involved pressing play on the digital audio file carefully collected by Julian to broadcast Oliver's greedy voice echoing throughout the silent room. The incriminating recording clearly featured my brother negotiating with a shady real estate broker to quickly liquidate the Cape Cod property immediately upon gaining legal control. A suffocating silence descended over the conference room as their most blatant lies were ruthlessly exposed under the unforgiving harsh light of absolute indisputable truth. Their highly respected legal representative immediately stood up from his leather chair, while loudly stammering that he was kept completely uninformed regarding these highly illegal activities. He officially declared his immediate withdrawal from their legal representation right at the mediation table before hastily packing his thick leather briefcase to flee the disastrous situation. Watching their former attorney abandon them in absolute disgust left Mom-Dad along with Oliver staring at each other in utter despair as their long-cherished asset-stealing plan completely collapsed. I calmly gathered the empty red envelopes with a strange sense of profound peace creeping into my mind, knowing Clara's justice was finally executed flawlessly. This intense confrontation was never simply a battle over money, but rather the permanent end to being manipulated by the toxic individuals I once called my blood family. Within 72 hours of that meeting, the facade they had maintained for years completely collapsed under the crushing weight of federal law. Mr. Sterling immediately submitted the comprehensive evidence portfolio directly to the appropriate law enforcement agencies for a formal criminal investigation. His swift legal action forced Mom-Dad alongside Oliver to officially confront severe felony charges regarding massive financial extortion and domestic theft. The local authorities quickly issued formal arrest warrants, causing them to experience the ultimate public humiliation of being escorted away from their respective homes in handcuffs. The aggressive institutional creditors wasted absolutely no time seizing their remaining personal properties to satisfy those enormous outstanding commercial debts. Their entire financial foundation crumbled rapidly, leaving them facing total bankruptcy while simultaneously preparing for impending criminal trials, carrying substantial prison sentences. They completely lost their luxurious lifestyle along with every single dollar they had previously stolen from the collective family savings over the decades. Witnessing their complete downfall brought a profound sense of closure, because their malicious actions had finally triggered their own unavoidable absolute destruction. Protecting our future required taking absolute defensive measures, so I successfully secured a permanent judicial restraining order against all three relatives. The legal mandate explicitly barred them from ever approaching Daisy or contacting me through any communication medium for the rest of our lives. The same beautiful Cape Cod house they once confidently broke into became the exact place they were permanently legally forbidden from ever entering again. The heavy consequences of their unquenchable greed officially severed our blood ties without leaving any possibility for future family reconciliation or misplaced forgiveness. Daisy and I finally returned to our peaceful daily routines without constantly worrying about hidden psychological manipulation or impending financial theft. We proudly placed Clara's antique maritime compass upon the highest mantel in our living room to deeply honor her brilliant protective foresight. Every single time I look at that polished brass instrument, I silently thank my incredible grandmother for providing the ultimate weapon needed to secure our freedom. Removing those highly toxic ghosts from our lives created a profoundly safe environment where my vulnerable daughter could finally thrive completely undisturbed. The channel proudly presents this story specifically to educate our audience regarding the critical importance of establishing rigid personal boundaries. We aim to highlight how approaching severe family crises using rational legal strategies remains the ultimate method for securing your personal autonomy. Reviewing this intense situation objectively reveals how the protagonist decisively protected her vulnerable family by executing a total permanent cutoff without any hesitation. The treacherous villains ultimately faced the inevitable catastrophic consequences resulting directly from their own remarkably greedy choices, alongside incredibly destructive psychological manipulation tactics directed against their own blood relative. Analyzing this devastating family betrayal provides several incredibly profound lessons regarding the absolute necessity of maintaining unyielding personal boundaries. Sharing biological bloodlines never guarantees genuine kindness, nor does it grant anyone the permanent unearned permission to continuously abuse your generous trust for their own personal gain. Deeply toxic individuals frequently utilize the deceptive disguise of loving parental concern to expertly mask their most predatory financial intentions against their own vulnerable relatives during moments of crisis. Weaponizing the judicial system to legally strip away the power of manipulative family members remains the absolute most effective manifestation of supreme self-respect and necessary personal preservation. We extend our most sincere gratitude to the dedicated listeners who patiently stayed with us until the very final moments of this intense narrative. How would you legally handle toxic relatives attempting to steal your inheritance, using deeply manipulative psychological warfare disguised as loving concern? Please share your sharpest defensive strategies in the comments below, and remember to subscribe to our channel for more empowering stories.
Câu chuyện này mang tính chất hư cấu, khắc họa một tình huống gia đình cực đoan nhưng không hiếm trong đời thực. Lòng tham được che đậy bằng tình thân. Nhân vật Rosanna đã đối mặt với sự phản bội ngay trong chính ngôi nhà của mình, khi cha mẹ và anh trai không chỉ trộm cắp tài sản mà còn tìm cách thao túng tâm lý con gái cô để dựng lên một kịch bản pháp lý nguy hiểm. Ví dụ việc Oliver tiếp cận Daisy để gieo nghi ngờ về năng lực của mẹ là một chiến thuật tinh vi, cho thấy sự tàn nhẫn có tính toán. Đáng chú ý, Rosanna không phản ứng cảm tính mà sử dụng bằng chứng, pháp lý và chiến lược để tự bảo vệ. Điều này cho thấy ranh giới cá nhân phải được thiết lập rõ ràng, kể cả với người thân. Bài học rút ra rất rõ ràng rằng tình thân không đồng nghĩa với sự an toàn tuyệt đối. Sự quan tâm bất thường có thể ẩn chứa mục đích thao túng. Hiểu biết pháp luật là công cụ bảo vệ mạnh mẽ nhất. Bạn nghĩ sao nếu bạn ở trong hoàn cảnh này? Bạn sẽ chọn đối đầu hay tha thứ? Hãy chia sẻ quan điểm của bạn ở phần bình luận bên dưới nhé!